All right, today we're digging into an idea that could, completely reshape our lives, the 4-day work week. And this isn't some fantasy anymore. Nope. It's a really serious proposal being debated in boardrooms and even governments all over the world. I mean, just imagine it for a second. A 3-day weekend every single week. Sounds like a total dream, right? But what if it's not? What if this could actually be our future? A whole lot of people are starting to ask if this is something we could and maybe even should make our new reality.
So the thing is, the idea of a shorter work week isn't new at all. But recently, two massive shifts have basically pushed it from this kind of fringe concept right into the mainstream. First, you had the pandemic, which, let's be honest, forced all of us to rethink our relationship with the office. That created this huge demand for more flexibility. And then, bam, the explosion of AI tools has everyone wondering, hey, can technology finally help us work less but smarter?
And you might think the 4-day week is just a new fad, but this timeline, well, it tells a pretty surprising story. The idea actually had its first big moment way back in the 1970s. Then, crickets. For nearly 40 years, the whole conversation just went quiet. But since 2020, oh man, it is back with a vengeance, sparking this huge renaissance in trials all over the globe. Okay, before we go any further, we have to get really clear on something, because 4-day week can mean two totally different things. The first one is what's called a compressed week. That's where you're still working the full 40 hours, you're just cramming them into 4 longer 10-hour days. But the one that's causing all the buzz, the one everyone is so excited about, is the reduced week. You might have heard it called the 180-100 model. And what that means is 100% of the pay for 80% of the hours. But, and this is the key part, in exchange for 100% of the output. That is the real game changer here. So what's the big promise here? What's the utopian vision? Well, for its biggest fans, the 4-day week isn't just some nice little perk. No, they see it as a powerful solution for some of our biggest, most deep-seated problems as a society. And this quote really gets to the heart of the social argument. The whole idea is that by fundamentally changing how we work, we could improve our well-being, we could strengthen our communities, and maybe even tackle massive issues like the gender pay gap. I mean, as sociologist Dr. Hee-Jung Chung puts it, it has the potential to reduce inequality and enhance social cohesion. Pretty good claims, right? Now, to really get the solution they're proposing, you first have to understand the problem they're trying to solve. And the argument is that our current long hours culture is, well, it's toxic. It's a system that rewards just being seen at your desk, FaceTime, over actual efficiency, and that leads to burnout. It really penalizes caregivers, who, let's face it, are still mostly women, and it creates this culture where being busy is treated like a badge of honor. It's this vicious cycle that basically shames anyone who can't or just won't play that game. So, the 4-day week is designed to attack this culture right at its root. The idea is to give people back what some call the right to time. Time for family, for your community, or just for rest. It could even lead to a fairer split of unpaid work at home. And get this, some studies even suggest it could reduce our carbon footprint by changing how we commute and consume. The ultimate goal? To shift our society's values away from a life that is just centered around work. Okay, that all sounds amazing, right? A societal fix. But if it's such a great idea, what's the catch? Well, that brings us to the other side of the coin, the more skeptical view. And the critics warn that when the push for a 4-day week comes from the top, from management, we have to ask a really important question. Who does this really benefit? And this quote from economist David Spencer just hits the nail on the head. This is the core fear. When a 4-day week is designed by business, for business, is it really about giving workers more freedom? Or is it just a clever way to squeeze more work out of you in less time? And that, right there, has a name. It's called work intensification. So here's how that whole critique breaks down. First, businesses are probably only going to sign off on this if it boosts their productivity and their profits. That creates this immense pressure to cram 5 days of work into 4, which, as you can imagine, can totally skyrocket your stress levels. It can also lead to more monitoring, more surveillance, to make sure your output doesn't drop. And this part is crucial. This model might not help low-wage hourly workers one bit. In fact, many of them need more hours and higher pay, not less work. Okay, so let's look at a real-world example that absolutely blew up the headlines. Back in 2019, Microsoft Japan ran a trial. And the result? This massive number, a reported 40% jump in productivity. A 40% jump. I mean, it looked like the ultimate proof that the 4-day week was a total win-win. But
Here's the part of the story that often gets left out of those headlines. It was just a temporary experiment, a trial. After it was over, the company went right back to a standard 5-day week. And that raises a really big question, doesn't it? If the results were so good, why didn't they stick with it? Or let's take another famous case, Perpetual Guardian in New Zealand. They were one of the first big companies to make the switch permanent. And on the surface, it was hailed as this massive success story. But when researchers really dug in, they found a kind of hidden trade-off. See, to get that extra day off, employees said they felt more pressure to perform, they were monitored more closely, and they even had to give up some of their autonomy just to make sure they hit all their targets.
So where does that leave us? Is the 4-day week this utopian dream, or is it just a new kind of productivity trap? Well, what all the research seems to suggest is that it's not automatically one or the other. It can actually be both. The final outcome, whether it's good or bad, depends entirely on how it's designed and, more importantly, why it's being put in place. And this chart does a great job of breaking the whole debate down into two competing visions, right? On one side, you've got the management-led model. Here, the primary goal is productivity and profit. It's driven by companies, and the biggest risk is that work gets way more intense and leads to burnout. But on the other side, you have the policy-led model. Here, the goal is worker well-being and fairness. It's driven by government policy, and the idea is that it should benefit all of society, not just one company's bottom line.
So, look, here's the bottom line. A 4-day week isn't just one single thing. It can be an amazing tool for liberation, or it can become a new form of exploitation. The real difference isn't the idea itself. It's all about the values and the goals that are baked into its design from the very beginning.
So it really seems inevitable that we're going to be seeing more and more of the 4-day week. The question isn't really if it's coming anymore, but what version of it we're all going to get. Is it going to be one that's designed for the benefit of everyone, or just for the bottom line? And ultimately, who it truly works for, well, that's up to us to decide.